jeez. Holy cow, you scared the crap out of me. Where you been? I've been here, dummy. People were waiting for you to make another video. It's been forever. Yeah, because I've been busy. I just don't have time for that right now. Yeah, you have been busy, huh? It looks like a freaking wreck in here. This is crap. Can you please put that down? Alright. So you gonna make a video or what? I really just don't have the time right now, okay? Alright. Well, do you mind if I make one instead? Whatever you want to do. It's gonna be a little off topic. That's fine. I don't care. I don't care. Good enough for me. Just take it outside, okay? So I can finish this stuff? I'll take it outside. Thank you. Enjoy your, whatever you're doing there. Okay, bye. Hey guys, welcome back. So, as I told him, this is going to be a little bit different than my normal videos, but don't worry, he'll be back to making videos about building stuff and whatever soon enough. But today, I wanted to talk about my bicycle, because it's kind of unique, and I wanted to go over it before I start changing things, because this bike is about probably like 19 years old now. I think this is a 1999 Spooky metalhead. Now, the company that makes it's called Spooky. They're still around today. They make all kinds of bikes. You can go look them up. I'll put a link below to what they do now. The actual frame style is their metalhead model frame. They made everything from cross-country bikes to downhill bikes to road bikes, and this was technically their dual slalom bike, which I believe now you would consider like a dirt jumping bike. That's kind of what this would be considered nowadays. It used to be called dual slalom because people raced dual slalom on them. At the time when this bike came out, there weren't really manufacturers making bikes like this. This was one of the first of its type, where the frame is really small from here to here. So very small, but the geometry from here to here is a little bit longer. So you weren't buying a tiny bicycle made for a small person. Like a person my height could ride this bike and it fit nice. Had a lot of unique features on it. One of the main things that's really cool is it has a BMX style bottom bracket, which are stronger than the mountain bike style bottom brackets. And I have yet to see another company do this. There probably are some that I don't know about, but at the time it was a very unique design idea. This, so these are profile BMX cranks, and BMX cranks are chromoly. They're super, super strong compared to mountain bike cranks. They're heavy, but weight wasn't really an issue when you're basically racing down a hill. Another pretty cool feature is that it has these horizontal dropouts in the back, which means you could put a single speed wheel in here and tighten it just like a BMX bike if you only wanted one gear. But if you wanted to set up like a mountain bike and you needed all your gears, they had these machine blocks that would slide and turn the bike around. It would slide and allow for the whole derailleur to move in conjunction with your cassette, so everything always stayed lined up. It had these giant gussets everywhere to make it really sturdy, and they were machined, like the yoke here between the chain stays was a machined piece of aluminum. These are machined, so even though it's a heavier bike, they still try to save weight in places, but same with the dropouts, are all machined. Another thing that this bike had in 1999 that was very unique were disc brakes. Not a lot of bicycles had disc brakes at the time. They're a pretty new item. One of the companies that was making brakes at the time was Hayes, and they make them for motorcycles and everything. They're very expensive. Cost me a freaking arm and a leg at the time, and I was getting a deal because I worked at a bike shop. Maybe like 2 years later, Specialized came out with their P3 model, which was a similar kind of design. And then I believe Intense had one, or some other companies started making these type of bikes after they became more popular. But again, this is one of the first of its kind. And a really special thing is this bike was made by Frank The Welder, who was basically one of the first mountain bike welders to use aluminum in the bicycles. And there's a documentary about this guy, which I will link below. And I think it's pretty interesting if you're into this kind of stuff. And the main reason I want to make this video too is because this bike is essentially how I was using it back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and then after I moved to Tampa, I didn't really use it all that much anymore, just because traffic, the brakes started to go bad. So it's just been around, but it's still a really good bike. So I want to start upgrading things. So this is where I show it how it is currently standing. And after this, I will be putting on a set of Shimano newer disc brakes. These are the SLX model, which are not the top of the line, but they are actually still better than my highly expensive Hayes brakes that are on the bike now. But because the bike has old mounts, I had to buy all these adapters and all this stuff so that these brakes would fit on this bike. I'm gonna get these things installed. I think I'm gonna do that now. You see it's got this adjustable Hayes mount here. I wanted to machine a brand new mount that wouldn't require an adapter, but it was just easier just to buy the adapter. It was pretty cheap. Maybe someday, if I'm really into this, I will redo all that. But for now, this is gonna have to do. This is the adapter that has to go up here. And one cool thing is because the brake whole mount and everything moves, you can change the wheelbase on this bike, which is really neat. Now, if this adapter doesn't fit up against this, I can move everything forward a little bit. It's going to disable some of my adjustments here, but that's okay. As long as the brakes work well, that's fine. So let's see what we can do. Yep, this definitely does not quite fit in its current position, so I will be moving this up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to have to take the wheel off to take this piece out and move it because the tolerances are really tight. I think just mainly because of the powder coating on the frame. One of the things that I forgot to talk about are these drop-out kind of holders here to keep your wheel in position, and they're really good if you're using a single speed wheel because you can tighten everything back and really make your chain super snug if you need to. These are very cool design wise, but they're kind of a pain in the ass if you have to take the wheel on and off, which most mountain bikes it's very easy to pop the wheels on and off. You don't have to undo anything. This requires a little tool. I think once I get these new brakes set up, I'm actually going to take off the this back portion here and just keep the little blocks, and then it'll make it a little bit easier to take the wheels on and off. I think I won't have to tighten these things down every single time I use it. Alright, so I've taken off the old Hayes front disc brakes, and I have also removed the rear disc brakes. You can see this old school Hayes mount, which they don't really use too much anymore, really at all. And then this one, this is the IS mount, which is the international standard. This is a converter for a Hayes mount, which doesn't quite fit the Shimano, so I had to get a different converter for IS to standard, which was great. Now this is still loose. Now the trick is I've tightened the actual adapter down. So you want to make this almost snug, like tighten it just enough. And of course I have the blue Loctite on these nuts, so they're hard to turn. That way, get a little more leverage. Get these things almost snug down. So this thing still moves a little bit. And then you squeeze the brake lever and you hold it, and then you tighten the other part down, which is going to be tricky. I'm going to hold this with my knees, the camera. And what this is going to do is help to center the caliper onto the disc brake. Now these are Hayes, actually the discs themselves are Hayes, so they may not work the best with the Shimano brakes, but I will upgrade that relatively soon. I just realized I'm missing a bolt there. That's really safe. So I'll have to get another bolt for that too. No big deal. So there we go. Tight and tight. Cool. Now let's see if it works. This is gonna be tricky. You know what? Forget it. I'm on a tripod. You set this up. Boom. Give it a spin. And oh my god, they work awesome. Front brake is installed, and it works with the Hayes rotor, which is really nice. So that means that I don't have to change that, at least not yet. On the rear, however, we're having a little bit of an issue because the actual brake These are all the adapters I need. I have this one to convert to IS and IS to Shimano, and that doesn't quite fit because the top of the brake right here is colliding with the frame, which is not good. So I have to find a workaround for this. See what I can do, because that is not gonna quite work. Fortunately, I have all these holes, which gives me a lot of mounting points if I want to make a custom adapter. So I might even make an adapter that goes up and mounts the brake up top here, you know, like a big plate, and it sits up here. It'll look a little cumbersome, but it will work. One other thing that I forgot to mention before is that the brake line is super long. So eventually I'm gonna have to trim these down a bit and then re-bleed the whole thing, which isn't horrible to do. I've done them before many times, but it's not one of my favorite activities, so they're gonna be just overly long for a bit. I know the rear brake is the same. It's super, super long. Last night, what I ended up doing is 3D modeling and printing out a bracket for the brake. Now, this is not an optimal thing for actual use. However, this is a really great way to figure out the design. And then I am going to use a 3D printed part temporarily until I get it completely worked out, the geometry and everything, and then I will probably have this piece machined out of aluminum. Right now, this is the first iteration. I've made some notes on what to adjust. It actually fits pretty well. A couple things is that it collides with the frame right here just a little bit. I need to make a little cutout to where the seat stay interferes with the actual mount. And I may actually, it actually looks really good right now. The way everything lines up is actually very, very good. So I don't need to do too much extra, but I might make a little bit of a bump out here on this part just to help give this a little bit of extra resistance against the frame if needed. Some of my bolt holes were slightly, the ones that I put here are just a hair too big, so the bolts just sort of slide in, and the ones here might be a little bit tight, and I cracked this one when I was threading it, which doesn't matter because test and everything. But let's go model a new one, get this sucker printing. All right, so here we have the brake mount, a little bit modified since the last version. I've got a guide here where the bolts will go on the rotor. Make sure that they don't collide. They're not hitting now, but they're really close. This is a little inset because I think I'm going to add a zip tie around this section, but because the tolerances are so tight, the zip tie would have hit the brake rotor. So I put a little inset so that I can run the zip tie without it colliding. In the future, when I do a metal version, there may be an actual second piece that bolts over that connects this part to this part with two little bolts just to really strengthen it up if it needs it. And what else did I mod? I changed some of the diameters of the bolt holes a little bit, changed the tolerances here because there's quite a big gap between the actual caliper and the mount, which is fine if it's aluminum, but I want to beef this up as much as possible for this version. So I thickened it up. Again, when I do an aluminum version, I'm going to cut out lots of hollow spots and really minimize the amount of material that's actually on the bike, make it a little bit lighter because I think it'll be plenty strong. But 3D prints need a little extra beef. All right, I've got the new piece here. It's got some of the mods I was showing on the 3D file. A lot of changes since the first version. We're gonna go tap the holes here to make sure that the bolts thread in. This is only a 30%, hey Turbo, this is only a 30% infill. If it works, I will make a completely solid one as a temporary fix until I can get one machined out of aluminum. I'm kind of interested to see how this holds up. This is PETG, so it's actually feels surprisingly sturdy. Although I still don't trust it 100% with riding a bike. I think it might actually fill the gap for a little bit. Pretty cool. There it is on the bike. Proof of concept. Looks like it's going to work pretty nice. Now it's obviously going to be a little sketchy to go ride with this, but I may just give it a go just to see how long it takes for it to break. Alright, so the ride is nice. You can see the rear brake here. When I hit the brake, watch it flex. ready to go. I mean, it's actually holding up pretty well considering it's such a quickly printed part. And it'll stop. Let's see if I can give it another one. I mean, it's working. Pretty amazing. It'll be better when it's properly done. Alright, the GoPro is in super view, so we are gonna try and do a wheelie and see what happens.
Maybe that's enough? Alright, I told you.
Seemed to work. Let's see. We're working with 3D printed rear brake. Hasn't failed yet. I'm sure it will, but we're okay right now. I will be doing maybe another mod or two and reprinting a completely solid one just to see how it goes. I wrote it a little bit, and there's clearly some flex, obviously because it's a 3D printed part, especially with 30% infill. But it does, because of the flex, it actually shows me where it might get a lot of torque even as an aluminum part. So I think I'm going to make a little brace that goes from about here and crosses over to here, just like a little flat plate that goes across. And I thought about making something more specific, but I want to be able to move this back and forth. So I'm going to change this setup so that it bolts maybe to here, and that'll give me a little bit of play so I can actually utilize the sliding dropout a little bit and then move everything down. Now on the inside of this part, there's a little cup that meets up with the nut on the wheel, and it keeps the wheel from going too much further forward. So if I move this and I want to work with a different wheelbase, I can always this will always line up because it's set so that the axle will always stop up against this plate once it's done. But this does work. We can go on a ride, we can go do some wheelies, and it's awesome. However, like I said, this is a little flexible right now, so I don't trust it for doing like real riding, but just goofing around my neighborhood, I don't think it's a problem. Alright, so that kind of concludes this first look at the mod for the Spooky back there. I've been thinking about it, and I might actually try to make a permanent 3D printed solution for this bike. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I've got some ideas that I think are going to work really well. So we'll find out. In a few months, if I've done it and it hasn't broken on me and I haven't got myself killed, then we'll check back. But I just got my Creality CR10 S5 printer today, so I'm going to be doing a video unboxing and building in that next. So I will see you guys soon. Later.